Good evening and welcome to City Journal News. I'm Brynley Duggan.
And I'm Caitlin Bannerham. Coming up on the program, are you safe in CBD shopping centres?
And a new sport to wet your whistle, one that's played underwater.
But first, let's have a look at what's in the news today.
Liberal MP Andrew Hastie has used parliamentary privilege to reveal Chinese businessman Chow Chak Wing was involved in the bribery of a senior United Nations official. Chow has been a donor to both major parties in Australia.
Adelaide's Catholic Archbishop Philip Wilson will stand aside from his duties but will not resign after he was convicted of covering up child sexual abuse in the 1970s. Archbishop Wilson is currently facing up to 2 years jail time.
Donald Trump says there is a strong chance a meeting with Kim Jong-un on June 12 will be delayed. But the US president says North Korea must abide by conditions that have been set for the summit, including denuclearization of the country's military.
A new report by the Salvation Army has found people on the New Start allowance live on an average of $17 a day. Our reporter Athos Sirianos will have more later in the bulletin.
And Optus has been ordered to pay $1.5 million for misleading thousands of NBN customers. The federal court found that Optus told about 14,000 customers their service would be disconnected if they did not move to the NBN within 30 days. And that's the news to the moment.
More people are turning towards urban food production as they become more conscious of what they consume and where their food is sourced. However, a recent study found elevated levels of lead in home gardens across Melbourne. Joanne Manise reports why homeowners and gardeners should lay the groundwork before starting their veggie patch.
A new report by RMIT, in collaboration with Macquarie University, found raised lead concentrations in community and residential garden beds across Melbourne. The elevated lead soil concentrations exceeded the recommended guidelines for food production. The study analysed the soil samples of 136 home veggie patches across Melbourne.
We found that about 20% of the gardeners who'd sent in samples had lead concentrations that were above the Australian guideline, which is the health investigation level.
It was found that old houses, particularly those painted before 1950, had higher levels of soil lead concentrations. Other factors that led to contaminated gardens was their proximity to the road and whether they were close to industrial lands.
The study only looked at a small sample size. It concluded that elevated lead soil contamination could pose a potential health hazard to some areas of inner Melbourne. While sites that were dedicated to industry have moved and industry standards have changed, the legacy of lead still remains in Melbourne's soil.
It doesn't surprise me, but it also does kind of concern me as well, the fact that not everyone is testing their soils before they're growing food.
The study reports lead can be absorbed by root vegetables grown in the soil, as well as directly if vegetables are not thoroughly cleaned.
Realities of current urban agriculture, it is a backyard thing, and it is at its best providing for an immediate community of a household.
By getting soil tested and adopting a more safer means for food production, people can protect themselves from lead soil contamination. This can be done by bringing in new soil, having raised garden beds, and even adopting a more creative approach to gardening. Joanne Manise, City Journal News.
The quiet seaside town of Mount Eliza is set for a major shake-up. New Zealand-based aged care company Ryman Healthcare has launched a proposal in the area. The proposal looks to develop the heritage-listed Moondah Estate into the company's largest Australian retirement village. The development would open up the exclusive housing market to hundreds of Australian families. But as Tom Hogan reports, it has been met with mixed views from the small community.
At the moment, there is a shortage of properties, so with this new development, I think that's going to assist in freeing up those properties for more families to move to the area. A lot of them are downsizing, some are staying in Mount Eliza and some are moving to Mornington as well, to retirement villages there.
The current proposal outlines the construction of 11 multi-storey blocks lining Kanyang Road, housing up to 600 residents with 320 care rooms, 91 assisted care rooms and 393 car spaces.
Not a lot in the Mount Eliza village area for them to purchase, so that's going to assist them as to not having to buy out of area and actually stay in Mount Eliza where they've always been.
Here we found in Mount Eliza that you weren't able to subdivide under 700 square metres, and so we thought we've found somewhere where we're relatively safe from development. We came together again as a community and we defeated that proposal to council. I think that we have a good record of coming together as a community.
Tom Hogan, City Journal News.
Campbell Arcade could soon be demolished to make way for Melbourne's newest metro tunnels. Madison Cloak reports on the campaign to protect its heritage and culture.
Development plans for Melbourne Metro's 5 new stations reveal the heritage-listed Campbell Arcade is under threat. Victorian State Planning Minister Richard Wynne has officially signed off on the $1 million plan which will see the eastern wall of the eclectic arcade demolished.
It's the combination of the arcade, where it is, the history of that place, the architecture of that place, and the tenants who are down there that make that arcade such an iconic place in Melbourne.
Originally built to ease commuter traffic between Flinders Street Station and De Graves Lane, the 1950s Art Deco arcade has since become home to Melbourne's underground art scene.
These are a lot of really small businesses which manage to survive in central Melbourne doing a creative.
Removal of the eastern wall of Campbell Arcade will make way for a new foot passage that will connect Flinders Street Station to the new Town Hall station. Long-time tenants have been told their leases will be up by July 2019. However, Metro have offered to help relocate its tenants.
Found out that we were going to have to move. We went looking at what was out there, and essentially it's 15 times the rent which we've paid for 17 years down here, which, when we're a not-for-profit run by volunteers, it's kind of out of our league to do that. So it would be sad.
Open in 1955, this heritage-listed arcade-cum-underpass was the first major public infrastructure built following the World War II. With its distinct colour scheme and charm, Campbell Arcade is a hidden gem that highlights Melbourne's acclaimed diversity.
My message really is to the government and to the Planning Minister, Richard Wynne, that please don't let us lose this last bit of Melbourne's grittiness and heritage and culture.
With the Port Phillip Arcade already lost to the Metro Tunnel upgrade, will Campbell Arcade soon too become a ghost of Melbourne's past? I'm Madison Cloak, City Journal News.
Theft in the CBD decreased by 13% last year, according to Victoria Police. However, stores in Melbourne Central continue to report stock loss and numerous incidents of shoplifting and aggression. Earlier this week, I took a look at the differences between the police reports and reality.
According to official crime statistics released for 2017, shoplifting offences were reported 16% less in the past year than in 2016. However, retail workers in Melbourne Central reportedly feel that levels of theft and aggression have risen, and they continue to receive negative stocktake results. Honora O'Farrell, manager of Supreme Melbourne Central, says the store is often targeted by shoplifters.
We are still experiencing instances every day, and it can be just a little bit out of our control. We are unable to bag check even if we're sure that someone's got something, and we also don't always call the police or call security every single time. Once the item walks out of our store, it's a little bit out of our hands.
The discrepancy between what retail workers feel the theft levels are and what crime statistics report could come down to how these incidents are handled, both in store and by centre security. Shoplifting is not often actually reported to the police due to the varying policies of the stores. Instead, it is often the young sales assistants, such as Sunny Wild, a casual within the Cotton On group, who endure verbal and sometimes physical attacks.
When a group of girls came in, they had a bag of clothes that were clearly from our store, but there was no receipt. So in that case, we had to call security. They obviously left before security came. After, I suppose, questioning them and trying to get a receipt and trying to explain to them what the issue was, they just sort of back chat and yell, and upon exiting, they finally left and they threw a cup at me, so that wasn't great.
Stores throughout the centre hope that a stronger security presence and more consistent anti-theft policies will ensure that the reported decreases in theft are then reflected in stores. Caitlin Badaham, City Journal.
Single-use plastic bags will soon be outlawed, with the Andrews government banning the bag from July 1st. It'll make Victoria the 5th state to ban them, but some Victorian businesses have already made the change. Will Watson reports.
The plastic shopping bag is one of our biggest environmental problems, and as Victoria gets set to ban them, some businesses are getting in early.
We've actually stopped providing single-use plastic bags for our customers.
The South Melbourne market banned plastic shopping bags from the 11th of April this year.
Most people sort of are expecting it and almost wanting it, you know, the change.
And some say it's change overdue. Statistics from advocacy group Clean Up Australia reveal 5 billion plastic bags are used by Australians every year. 50 million of those bags end up in forests, on footpaths and in our waterways, where marine life often choked to death on the litter.
Being in Port Phillip, we have the bay and lots of waterways and also the bay itself. And so it's very important to our community because the impacts of plastic bags within the local community are very significant.
But not all plastic will go. The Victorian government will allow so-called barrier bags to remain.
For the wet foods, such as the meats and the fish and the produce bags and also for florists as well, those are still in use. However, the single-use plastic bags was the first step, and certainly we'll be looking at phasing those out through time.
The Victorian ban follows the lead of the ACT, the Northern Territory, Tasmania and South Australia.
As these bans roll out across the country, retailers are now offering alternative means of carrying your shopping, like green bags, paper bags, or boxes.
And with the statewide ban set for the 1st of July, many of these customers are ready.
So you don't use plastic bags much at all?
Try not to.
I try not to. I try to take like green bags with me to supermarkets.
Yeah, it's a little bit like inconvenient, but people get used to it.
Will Watson, RMIT News.
As you heard in the headlines, there was a rally outside the State Library today by a group demanding an increase in Centrelink payments, following reports released by the Salvation Army. We're crossing now to our social affairs reporter, Athos Sirianos. Athos, what can you tell us about the rally?
Well, Caitlin, the rally was in response to those reports released by the Salvation Army today, which revealed that recipients of New Start are living off $17 a day, which with most of their allowance going towards expenses such as accommodation, with many paying rent and mortgages. I've actually got Joanne Manise, who was at the rally today. Joanne, what can you tell us about the vibe of the rally today?
Well, it was really a veterans affair. It was quite peaceful, the rally.
And what was said at the rally by the veterans that were there?
It was more about making sure that their social services incomes were increased, as they're finding it really hard to afford rent as well as the gas and electricity.
And moving forward, is this group looking to take this movement further?
Yeah, there will be another rally on this weekend, and that's in respect of the privatisation of commission flats.
Thank you, Joanne, and we'll give you all the latest on that story moving forward. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks very much, guys. An issue of passion for many Victorians. Now, earlier this month, the city came to a standstill in what is believed to be the largest union mobilisation since work choices. A pressing issue among the workers was the treatment of young people and students. Alex Dalziel reports on the young activists fighting for change.
Among the army of flags and high-vis marching through the city were a contingent of young and student workers.
Many of the students came to the march in protest of the recent spate of wage theft affecting the hospitality industry, an industry that employs a large number of young people and international workers.
At the moment are allowing multinational corporations to pay close to zero tax. They're letting young people get paid, half of what they actually should. So we think that we need to change the rules to make tougher consequences.
Budget came out, we got a $10 tax cut for working people, while I think people on $200,000 a year got $137 less off their tax.
There was a record turnout at the rally today, which started at the Victorian Trades Hall and made its way down to Flinders Street. For the young workers, the rally gives them the opportunity to voice their concerns after a number of recent wage theft allegations in the hospitality industry.
Well, I mean, a lot of young people feel like we're really getting the short end of the deal when it comes to industrial agreements. Cafes like Barry Cafe trying to make young people sign away their wages in exchange for free coffee. There's not a lot of people other than the unions really trying to do anything for young people.
The Young Workers Centre used the rally to launch a campaign to criminalise wage theft. The new legislative push would make deliberate underpayment of workers punishable by up to 10 years in jail. The young workers hope to gain the support of the Victorian government coming into a state election later this year.
But if you were to steal money from the till, you're going to go to jail. But your boss can steal money from you intentionally, deliberately, repeatedly, and nothing happens to them.
Alex Dalziel, City Journal News.
We insist they change. We know power never gives in without a demand.
As dialogue regarding Indigenous representation in Victoria continues, systems of Indigenous education are adapting. As these changes roll out, I had a look at the Melbourne Indigenous Transition School, a bridging school for Aboriginal children in Melbourne.
The traditional owners of Kulin Nation have a footprint on the land dating back over 40,000 years, and there are reminders of Indigenous culture all around us. It is vital this culture is taught to the next generation.
The Victorian government is working towards a treaty with Indigenous Australians, and people are in place to support Indigenous youths. But what more can be done to sustain this culture?
At school we weren't actually taught very much about Aboriginal culture that I can even remember.
Every child and every person possibly should be exposed to an awareness that we can be taught by Aboriginal people.
MITS is working to enhance Indigenous representation through education and belonging.
We want this place to be a place of cultural strength for the kids and cultural celebration.
The MITS program is now in its third year and the impact is palpable.
We've had 33 students graduate from MITS over the first 2 years of operations, and so that means that there are now over 50 young people who are either in Melbourne because of MITS or in Melbourne at MITS.
While MITS has been successful, this is just one step on a long road of cultural cultivation.
I think we can always aspire to do better, and I think that's true at MITS, that's true in every school around the state and around the country. We can certainly do more to engage young Indigenous people in education, and also to engage young non-Indigenous people with Indigenous content in school curricula. I think we're on the right track though.
The First Nations people, they need to be recognised.
It's about a set of values which really does celebrate culture and puts culture centrally in everything that we do.
Brindley Duggan, City Journal.
Mobile technology and online data are increasing the speed of humanitarian aid from several days to several hours. Campbell Mowat reports on the young entrepreneurs leading this new age of disaster relief.
This is the new face of humanitarian aid. 20-year-old Melburnian Tristan Cole is co-founder of Sempo, a technology platform allowing non-government organisations to rapidly send digital funds to victims of crisis.
We send an SMS out to a list of beneficiaries, and they can use these digital credits and then spend it at vendors, and then we reimburse the vendors for any goods and services that people have bought.
Using online data, Sempo hopes to identify those most affected in a disaster zone and provide direct cash donations which support local markets.
Because when a disaster happens or a humanitarian crisis, it's generally very localised. So there's actually markets that are still operating.
After running e-commerce businesses through high school and dropping out of university to work on multiple startups, Cole is set to launch Sempo mid-2018 with co-founder Nick Williams. SEMPO is only one of the many new ideas being introduced to disaster relief, with these innovative uses of technology having an important role to play within the humanitarian sector.
Some of the large traditional organisations, be them Red Cross, UN, all those big NGOs, they can be quite traditional and quite bureaucratic. So to have that, that agile new thinking coming in, I think is really important.
Director of the Humanitarian Advisory Group, Beth Eggleston, says that while technology is a useful tool, developers often incorporate their own values into their platform, which may not always apply to those in need.
A lot of coding and a lot of software development is made by white men in different parts of the world, and if we expect that to be applicable everywhere, that may not be the case.
And like all work within the humanitarian sector, the most effective forms of relief come from understanding and implementing diversity.
Ensuring that you are having a really diverse pool of people doing the development is going to be really key in ensuring that that understanding of the problem happens before the solution is offered.
Campbell Mowat, City Journal News.
And now to sport with Carly Waters.
Thanks, Caitlin. Tonight we start with the AFL. Brisbane Lions skipper Dane Beams has decided to step aside as captain, admitting he has struggled to come to terms with the death of his father. Dane Zorko has replaced Beams, while defender Harris Andrews will take up the reins as vice-captain. An Adelaide Crows fan who slapped Western Bulldogs captain Easton Wood on the behind during a clash at Adelaide Oval last week has been banned from the stadium for the remainder of the season. The Adelaide Football Club, together with the Stadium Management Authority, came to the decision today following a joint investigation. Victorian teams will be up against 11 other bids to take one of the 2 spots in the expanded A-League for the 2019-2020 season. Football Federation Australia is bringing in two teams to bolster the competition, despite regular assertions that the league is flat and the game is stagnating. Serena Williams is set to return to Grand Slam tennis from maternity leave at Roland Garros this month. However, French Open organisers have announced they will not give the 23-time major singles winner a seeding. Williams will be competing for her 4th French Open Grand Slam title. In NBA playoff news, the Houston Rockets have defeated the Golden State Warriors 95-92 in a thriller to even the Western Conference Finals at 2 games apiece. The Australian wrestling scene has received a major boost through the launch of Underworld Wrestling. Athos Sirianos reports on how the promotion seeks to redefine the industry.
State-of-the-art performances fueled by unbridled intensity is what professional wrestling is all about. Underworld Wrestling seeks to bring the art form back to its roots in a way which showcases wrestling at its purest.
Our point of difference is really that we have this rule system that's coming out of this centuries-old fight club that we're now bringing to the public.
Australian wrestling legend Carlo Cannon entered the promotion as the champion and believes this type of wrestling is unlike anything he has seen.
I know for a fact this isn't going to change wrestling in Australia, this is going to change wrestling as a whole, and I'm happy and proud to be at the forefront and lead it.
Underworld Wrestling's unique points and ranking system makes it unlike any promotion in the world. Launching on the 15th of June, the promotion hopes to capture the hearts of wrestling fans through showcasing wrestling at its purest.
Basically, you get 1 point for count out or pin, you get 2 points for submission or knockout, you get 0 points for any kind of draw, disqualification. And basically, think of it as like a video game. So you collect points and then you cash in your points for a championship opportunity. The thing that the fans can expect is, and this may be a bit of a cop-out, but they actually don't know what to expect, and I don't think the fans are ready.
The promotion also provides local wrestlers a chance to develop and improve their skills, continuing to put Australian wrestling on the map.
I think what sets the Australians apart from everyone else is that we're hungrier. We want it more than anyone, I think, because we don't get it. We're so far away and so distanced from all wrestling that some people don't even know that it exists here.
It is this passion which has laid the foundation for this new promotion, which seeks to pile drive its way into wrestling folklore. Athos Sirianos, City Journal.
For over 3 million Australians, weeknights are taken up by social sport. Whether it be workers trying to rediscover their youth or students having fun with their mates, social sport is ever present in Australian society. With people always on the lookout for the next edgy sport, underwater hockey has rapidly increased in popularity, with more and more Australians having a go at this unique water game. Zach Standish reports on this rising social sport.
Created by the British Navy in 1954, underwater hockey made its way to Australian shores in 1966. Since then, Australia has been regarded as a pioneer in the development of the sport, with a growing number of social teams and success on the international stage. Amy Barry Macaulay has been involved in underwater hockey for over 20 years at both club and international level, and describes the sport as very different to the public perception. Underwater hockey is played in a 25 by 15 metre pool with 10 players on each team. The aim of the game is to hit the plastic-covered lead puck into the opposing team's goal with small sticks. The sport can be played by people of all shapes and sizes. The social side of underwater hockey is another major drawcard to newcomers taking up the sport. Angus Lehman has been a regular at the Melbourne Underwater Hockey Club for over 10 years and describes a very friendly and social environment. Stuart Scott is coordinator of the Wizards Underwater Hockey Club at Xavier College and urges all Melburnians to come and experience the unique sport. Underwater hockey is a unique sport on the rise, but offers something for everyone. With the ability to take your game from the pools of Xavier and MSAC to aquatic arenas around the world, there has never been a more exciting time to get involved. Zach Standish, City Journal News.
And that's all in sport. Back to you guys.
Thanks for quenching our thirst, Carly. Trams are an icon in and around Melbourne. They have been serving the city's public for over 120 years. Tucked away in the suburbs is a monument to our tram network, run by a group of dedicated volunteers. Sarah Krieg reports from the Melbourne Tram Museum.
History is hidden behind this heritage-listed facade, Melbourne's Tram Museum. The museum is home to 20 fully restored trams dating from as far back as 1906. The collection is in good hands here, with a team of passionate volunteers maintaining them.
I was interested since a little boy, maybe of 4 or 5, since my early memories. I thought there's some interesting things I can do, and I could come along here and work with some of the other volunteers and talk about my pet topic.
Trams have been ferrying Melburnians around since the early days of the Victorian Football League. The introduction of the first electrified tram line in 1889 allowed fans to get across the city to support their team. More tram lines began to spring up after this, and with this expansion came new tram models. Many of the trams are here on display at the museum, where the volunteers ensure that they are restored to be historically accurate.
I got to know all the guys around here, and they're a good bunch of people, and stayed on here after I subsequently retired.
With 203 million trips taken on trams each year, the volunteers recognise the need to protect Melbourne's history while embracing the changes that expansion will bring. The state government's proposal to construct a light rail from Caulfield Station to Monash University is only the beginning.
Melbourne could use the tram system to free up the inner suburbs and the CBD and pedestrianise it. But of course, there's a long way to go.
While not all changes may go ahead, one thing is certain. The dedicated individuals here at the Tram Museum will continue to track the changes in Melbourne's evolving tram network. Sarah Krieg, City Journal News.
How quaint. Now it's time for the weather with Madison Cloak.
Thanks a lot, guys. Right now it's 14 degrees and cloudy in Melbourne, and we can expect it to drop to a low of 11 degrees overnight. It looks like it will continue with a dreary end to the week with a possible showers and a high of 16 on Thursday, and a cloudy Friday, also with a high of 16. There will be a slight drizzle for the southeastern suburbs on Friday, but unlikely elsewhere across the state. And the Alps can expect a light dusting of snow throughout next week as Melbourne's weather starts to warm up, with a mostly sunny Monday with a high of 19. And as we look towards the weekend, we can expect a break in clouds for a mostly sunny Saturday with a high of 17, while Sunday will be mostly sunny with a top of 18. And that's the weather for you today. Back to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Maddie. I'll definitely be heading outside this weekend.
Great idea, Caitlin. Maybe we can have a picnic.
I'd rather not. That's it for City Journal News. It's been a pleasure. I'm Caitlin Batterham.
And I'm Brynley Duggan. Keep smiling, Melbourne.